All right. Let's move on to a question from Joe. He says this: my dad recently turned 60 years old. Thanks for making me feel old, Joe, because I'm older than your dad by a long ways. He's in good physical shape, healthy weight range, no major injury history. A lucky guy. And has a reasonable diet while getting plenty of sleep. First off, Joe, hats off to your dad. And gosh, gotta tell you, Joe, he's a good role model for you, your friends, and the rest of your family. He gets a lot of steps throughout the day, hikes, swims occasionally, and runs around 10K every weekend with a few 5K scattered throughout the week. Recently has expressed interest in moving away from running to focus more on walking, hiking for zone 2 cardio to lessen joint impact. Before I even move on, Joe, as I'm a track and field guy, but I do think after 55, you certainly can keep running, but if a lot of people just get a lot of the same benefits from the walking, bicycling, swimming, the hiking that your father's doing. I think one of the great blessings of the early triathlon movement is it got a lot of people who were just running to kind of diversifying their cardiovascular training. And then, of course, it became even crazier than the running boom. I recommended he look into rucking to give him a new hobby we can do together that I think he would enjoy with birding. Another shared hobby we have. It used to be called bird watching, now it's called birding. And it is a very, very great thing to hear that you and your father love it. I'm kind of getting emotional. Yeah, I lost my father, Joe, in 1991. And this is going to sound awkward and weird in a podcast. I'd love to have just one more talk with him, I joke sometimes that if he was still alive, he'd always have a couple of cases of my books in his car, and he'd be just handing them out to every single person who looked his way. So be sure you enjoy this time with your dad, okay? My only concern is that he was never done much strength training, and I don't want to end up getting injured. I also would love to get him some simple kettlebell program he can do a few times a week to combat his muscle atrophy as he ages. Any recommendations for a simple routine he can do to maintain strength, as well as to program to start rucking to avoid injury? I'm not sure if I could recommend him a weighted backpack versus vest versus heavy hands that you've mentioned on your podcast. Any recommendation would be great. Well, certainly, I'll tell you one thing. Don't ruck heavy. I think one of the mistakes that's happened with and rucking has become a craze. And I know it's a craze because when you see it in your, when you see it popping up everywhere whenever you go to a site, it's become a craze. And most people over ruck. I would suggest as light as a 10-pound vest. It doesn't have to be very much. And your dad, honestly, probably has a backpack floating around the house somewhere. I have rucked with kettlebells, and kettlebells aren't bad with a school backpack because it's not. So I like the school backpacks that have the little clip here. It'll slide up to about here. Instead of being about here, it'll slide up to here. But the kettlebell, the round ball part will rest naturally, at least for me, in my lower back. The 10-pound one I got at Ross Dress for Less. They had it for like $4, and I'm like, mine. I also have, some really heavy ones up to 65 pounds, I think. But all he'll need is a 10. When it comes to the weightlifting ideas, I'm going to give you just two things I wanted to think about. Vertical presses. So either double presses, military presses with a bar, seesaw presses, alternate presses, touchdown presses. For more information, just see, I have a whole chapter on it in Armor Building Formula. Press, overhead press, overhead press, overhead press. And then any kind of glute work you can get them to do as a supplement to everything else. Now, if you're hiking big, tall mountains uphill, you probably not need to. But if all I could give your dad is to do one exercise, it would be overhead presses. Easy to learn. I can almost guarantee he knows what to do. and that would be the one. They're very safe. Now, you don't mention any jacked up shoulders or anything, so I think this would be the idea for you. And thanks, and enjoy these end times, okay? Thank you.